is the Business Breakfast on the UAE's #1 talk radio station.
Dubai Eye 103.8.
Well, speaking tangentially of energy, if diversifying away from it, one of the big stories, of course, Saudi Arabia announcing plans for 4 special economic zones. They're looking to attract more international investment and diversify the kingdom's economy. And we're speaking now to the setup specialist, Alex Nicholls. He's the head of KSA Expansion and Community at AstroLabs. Alex, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And the fact that AstroLabs has a head of KSA expansion, if you like, probably tells us all we need to know.
Yeah, exactly. So we were one of the first licensed incubators in Saudi Arabia over 4 or 5 years ago. And from there, we've gone on and expanded over 350 companies into Saudi Arabia. And yeah.
It's busy, right.
Very busy.
Let's look at what these 4 special zones are going to add to the mix. What's the advantage for investors of choosing one of these?
Okay, yeah, so they've been talking about these special economic zones for a long time, ever since I've been in the region in Saudi Arabia. And it's good that they've now finally set their vision and roadmap for these 4 economic zones, plus the one that's already there, the logistics zone. The main incentives are usually around the kind of tax incentives. So at the moment, for any foreign business that's set up in Saudi Arabia, you're looking at a 20% corporate tax on net profit. At the moment, they've announced that there will be a 5% corporate tax for any of these free zones. There's also additional tax benefits when it comes to things like withholding tax and sending money out of the kingdom. And they've also added incentives on things regarding employment and Saudization quotas. No details kind of released yet on this. However, there'll be a lot more to come, I think, after Eid and over the coming few weeks and months.
So as I understand it, there's 2 main areas that people have big questions about that might be giving them pause about expanding into Saudi Arabia from a logistical point of view. You've mentioned the first, which is tax. Interesting that these are not complete free zones, that they're not completely tax-free.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I think one thing that Saudi Arabia has done very differently to Dubai, I think in Dubai, the free zones were kind of created before to allow that 100% foreign ownership. And one thing they had to do, I think, to attract that was that free taxation. In Saudi Arabia, they've already allowed 100% foreign ownership through the MISA license and through a mainland license. So this is actually a lot more targeting very specific sectors. Those sectors being kind of on your logistics side, pharmaceutical, medtech. So I don't think they feel the need maybe necessarily to go for the complete tax-free route and instead have added additional types of incentives to try and attract these companies in.
Okay, and let's look at the other big one, which is the hiring of foreigners. Talk to me about the breaks that this is going to give companies.
Yeah, so they haven't got separated out the details as of yet. However, there is a Saudization quota in Saudi Arabia. So usually, if you're, for instance, setting up a service company, 1 in 3, 1 in 4 of your employees will need to be Saudi nationals. However, they have said that there will be breaks on this Saudization quota in these free zones, depending on the free zone, depending on the company. So I think it will be done on like a case-by-case basis. And we've seen a similar thing also in the RHQ license. So these incentives are all kind of linked together, I think, to attract companies into Saudi Arabia. And similarly, on the RHQ license, there is actually a complete break, for instance, on Saudization for the first 10 years for those companies.
Okay, and the other one that people might not realise until they start the process is the sheer process of setting up a business. What's going to be the big difference for these economic zones?
So again, the big difference at the moment, what they've announced and what they've set the vision on is to have this kind of one-stop shop that allows you to completely, fully set up and establish a company using just one point of contact. However, from what we've seen, MISA, who are the ones who allow for the mainland license and 100% foreign ownership, also have this one-stop shop. However, that process is actually quite a complicated one. It's not, for us, when we talk about setup in Saudi Arabia, we don't talk about just getting you a license. We talk about getting you a business which allows you to actually operate in the kingdom. So what does that mean? It means You're not just getting your commercial registration, you're getting your visa, you're getting your Iqama for your general manager, the medical done, you're getting a bank account, which again, we've all seen in the region can be difficult at times. So yeah, it's about having those strategic partnerships in place to allow that market entry as easy and smooth as possible and seamless as possible for those companies entering.
And give us an idea of how many ministries that can involve in Saudi if you're going not through a one-stop shop.
Yeah, so at the moment we'll deal with about over 10 different ministries in Saudi Arabia. That's from the Ministry of Investment, who have done a great job in allowing that kind of foreign investment license. But then you're also dealing with the Ministry of Commerce, the Ministry of Justice, the GOSI system. There's a lot of different ministries involved in this process.
So one of the big questions, what does this mean in line with the HQ rules that we've got in Saudi Arabia? If someone sets up in one of these 4 zones, does it count as having a Saudi HQ?
From my understanding, it wouldn't count necessarily as having a regional headquarters. You would still need to go through the MISA route of getting a regional headquarters through the Ministry of Investment of Saudi Arabia, where they have a whole program in itself. But again, offering similar type of services where they will also help companies with a complete soft landing using companies like AstroLabs to help accommodate those.
What kind of interest or what kind of activity have you seen around the HQ setup space? Companies, A, inquiring, but B, also doing it in the last quarter, 2 quarters?
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of interest, and I think the interest comes from the announcement that you cannot work on any government contracts in 2024 unless you have a regional headquarters in Saudi Arabia. So the interest is definitely high. We know that over 80 to 100 companies so far have got their regional headquarters license with the Ministry of Investment. I expect that to rapidly increase over the next year, before 2024.
But are you getting people more just asking the questions than actually making the move?
Good question. So yes, we are getting a lot of questions about it at the moment. We've also are seeing people now make the move as they see the incentives come to fruition, I guess, and come to light as to what it means for them and their business as they're expanding and scaling.
Are they making a move in terms of moving an existing headquarters from elsewhere into the kingdom, or are they setting up a parallel headquarters, if you like?
So from what I've seen is they are setting up a regional headquarters in Saudi Arabia. I don't know whether that means that they're taking it away from other areas in the region. However, I think they're all now going in with the long-term vision. The amount of investment opportunities and the amount of projects running in Saudi Arabia, it makes sense for them now to make that move into the kingdom.
Well, Alex Nicholls is the head of KSA Expansion and Community at AstroLabs, speaking to us.